Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about stuff. So I want to have more of a discussion and we'll see where things end up going. Simply because there's so much on my mind regarding the market, where the market's going to go, where we currently are right now, where we were, and where people have been saying that we're going to be over the course of the next few months. There's a lot happening at the exact same time. The discussion of interest rates won't go away for whatever reason. A lot of people are still assuming that over the course of this year alone that we are going to still have 2 interest rate cuts on the stock market and essentially for all interest rates in general. The idea is that if or when they decide, the Fed, to cut interest rates, because a number of other countries have already begun to do so. This is crazy. Already begun to do so, that the Fed is kind of essentially forced to be able to do it. The job market, job loss numbers, inflation numbers, interest rate numbers, they're all completely messed up right now, especially within the United States. And we're choosing the United States simply because it tends to be the market that everyone ends up paying attention to, regardless of how many other markets are happening around the world. The issue is, there's a gigantic issue there, is that when the Fed decides to start printing more money, to be able to pay off the trillions of dollars worth of debt, it's going to cause inflation for the US dollar. The inflation for the US dollar is going to devalue the US dollar, and the devaluation of the US dollar will cause them to print more money to be able to pay off the extra money that they have to pay off, but then they have to print more money to be able to pay back that money, but the printing of the extra money will also then continuously devalue the US dollar. I don't know what's going on. Sorry for screaming into the microphone. I'm not sure what's happening, what's taking place. Am I the only one who feels it? Because something is off. I feel like the balance is not where it always has been. Maybe, I don't know, maybe just as long as I've been on this planet. The devaluation of the US dollar needs to be more of a topic that people are talking about, because it's probably the thing that's going to set a precedent for the rest of the next 100 years. If you weren't here for the last couple of videos, we had I mean, you can find it. It's not even like a news story. It's simply a thing. Over the course of the last 10 years alone, 10, Bitcoin has lost, the US dollar has lost 99% of its value to Bitcoin. I was just chatting with some people and we were going over it and I was like, the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. We've seen the numbers. So there are actually, I mean, the US dollar is 99.8%, and other world currencies, it's literally 99.99999, like repeating it. They are just compared to Bitcoin. The news that we keep on getting, for those of you who've also maybe been missing a couple of videos, hello again. People are still buying Bitcoin, but they're doing it in a very like strategic kind of way. It's kind of like, imagine, I don't know, maybe I'm hungry again. Imagine you have a table that's like full of oranges and apples. And if someone walked up to you and took all 300 apples at once, you'd be like, what the, does this guy really like apples? Imagine this guy comes up to you 1 hour and buys an apple. Next hour, someone else comes up, buys an apple. Person comes up, buys an apple. So they're actually, for the sake of the story, they're actually all related. They all live in the same house. But it takes a good 2 or 3 weeks for all of your apples to go away. And you're like, huh, you know, the demand was there, just wasn't as high as I thought it was going to be. That's what's currently happening with Bitcoin. The accumulation levels are indicative of an accumulation mode, an accumulation period within the Bitcoin market. But it's happening like really intense, and it's happening quite faster than it has before. Because of the lack of Bitcoin that's actually on the market, the numbers are very, very clear. If there's maybe 1 million Bitcoin left in general, like to be able to accumulate to buy, and 8 billion people left on the planet, there's literally not enough. There's not. We're going to live in a world where the millionaires and billionaires now who are not paying attention to the market, who make their money elsewhere and don't care, they're essentially going to be fighting over Bitcoin at some point. It always does that turn off thing. Eventually we'll be fighting over Bitcoin at some point because there's not, they can't mathematically create new one from the actual air. Like I said, it's going to be a bit of a different video simply because there's so many things that are currently taking place. The devaluation of other assets compared to Bitcoin, it's more of a, I guess the question I'm trying to propose is like, where the fudge are we going? Like, what's happening? Years ago, when I started reading about the market and the cryptocurrency and the Bitcoin space, I was just chatting with someone about this. We were talking about Andreas Antonopoulos, and he was basically predicting the inflation of the US dollar, but like very strong inflation. The hyper devaluation of the US dollar. He didn't even say the first time compared to Bitcoin. It was just like in general, the devaluation of it. And then he started talking about how Bitcoin was going to like start eating other assets. People would realize or assume, I don't want to buy gold anymore because Bitcoin's outperforming it. Do I really need that other item that I've been investing in because I've seen that Bitcoin has outperformed it? And then the more people buy, the more the price ends up going up. The more the price goes up, the more people go, well, I was right because the price has gone up compared to what I was going to buy. But their buying is making less Bitcoin in the market, which is raising the price. Them raising the price is showing other people that they should have bought Bitcoin before, even though they bought the other asset. Bitcoin's price goes up and it kind of just continuously continues. We had news recently, I mean, this is nearly every other day, of these people over the course of a 24-hour period who are buying 18,000 Bitcoin, 47,000 Bitcoin, like 86,000. And it's like, when you hear these numbers over and over, I have a theory that people become relatively desensitized to them. They don't have the same effect as they used to before, even a couple of years ago. One of the things that I think bothered me the most last cycle, and I'll even throw us back to 2020, 2021, was that Bitcoin did not go as far as it should have because of world events. And I've had a lot of conversations about it on here or with people in front of me, we're talking and stuff like that. The generalized idea was that Bitcoin was going to go over 100,000. It did not. I think we hit $70,000. The problem was, for those of you who don't remember, is that the world was not like we're doing much better, but you understand what was happening in 2020 and 2021. The markets were in complete panic mode and complete fear because the US dollar, the inflation was insane. Inflation around the world was also absolutely terrible. The idea of raising interest rates, people not having jobs and trying to save the roof over their head and all these other things, of course, added to the selling pressure of all the markets, regardless of the news that you were getting that the markets were doing well, when it was basically just all the FANG stocks, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, etc., etc. Where we are now is weird because the price predictions that we're getting for Bitcoin are staggering, but realistic. And I can't figure out the current course that we're on, where we're going to go. We are roughly, at the time of me making this video, we are roughly, I want to say exactly 2 months away from the first really big Bitcoin price predictions. For those of you who don't remember, the predictions were by, I believe the beginning of July, that we would have a $100,000 to a $150,000 Bitcoin. And that's just based off of it's weird. That's just based off of the news of the ETF accumulation from BlackRock and Fidelity. You might remember It was just those two companies, their levels of accumulation, not the other ETFs that were in there, not the ETFs from Singapore, not the ones from Hong Kong, not the ones from Germany, not the ones from Australia, not the ones from Canada, you name it. The list continues to go on and on and on. And that puts us right back where we were once again in 2020-21. That was the 100,000 Bitcoin that we all knew was going to happen, but because of gigantic selling pressure, because of the world that was going on at that time, of course, we didn't get to those numbers. A number of analysts are popping up over and over again. You've seen, I've brought you the news constantly, talking about where we're going to go this market, this current cycle. The accumulation range that we've been in for the last couple of weeks has also been incredibly, and I say healthy, for the market, because markets aren't and will never completely just go straight up forever. There's always going to be some dips. There's always going to be some sideways motion and or downward. But in the long term, markets tend to continue to go up, and our market for some reason works on a much quicker schedule than every other market that's currently out there in the world. There's a guy called Ki Young Ju, K-I Young, and then J-U. He's been in the news a lot over the last couple of years. He said something that I wish more people paid attention to. Personal feeling, personal, me. He said based off of the current fundamentals of where Bitcoin is right now, we should be around 3 times higher in price. You might remember in 2020, 2021, where we heard news from, I think it was the head of Blockstream and Samson Mao and a couple of other people who said that Bitcoin should easily be over 100,000 based off of its fundamentals. The fundamentals, for those of you who are wondering, basically come down to actually what Bitcoin's doing, the actual network usage, the robustness of it, how many people are on the network, how many people are buying, how many people are staying, how many new wallet addresses, how much money is flowing through the Bitcoin network over the course of a day, over the course of a month. Has the network had any downtime? No, Bitcoin's been going strong for the entire time. I mean, except for I think 1 or 2 days, but that was 2011. And that's really, if you ever get a chance to read some of Bitcoin's history, there was apparently an event where they were just not allowing people, but telling people in the public, hey, look through the Bitcoin code to see if you find any errors. And apparently the legend goes that someone did find an error. He didn't announce it. And he actually went to the people who were building up Bitcoin's code and was like, hey, there's a problem. And they found the issue and luckily they fixed it. But that's, I guess, ancient history kind of at this point. Bitcoin's fundamentals are incredible. The lack of downtime, the 24-hour movements of money, the trillions of dollars that it has continuously flowing through it, it is impossible to even think 14, 15, 16, 17 years ago of there being a system that wasn't run by the government that had trillions of dollars flowing through it with no problems, with no government intervention actually taking place. Bitcoin's fundamentals are very strong, egregiously, monstrously, what is going on with this network? And this is what I think aids in the confusion for a lot of people when the prices aren't immediately moving up. Rich people know how to manipulate every market. I don't know if I just surprised you. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. These people know exactly what they're doing, and this is why we've had news that during the sideways price movements that we have now and or any dips that we've had, they've been short-lived and they go back up because the accumulation levels are so abundantly high right now. The weird part is that I know, and I'm sure many of you who've been with the market for a while now, Bitcoin is I say this not as investment advice, more of just a look at the numbers and look at the math and you will get to the end of the golden pyramid, golden road or something, whatever the say is that is even a saying. Ki Young Ju said, off the current metrics of Bitcoin, he said we are far more robust than we have ever been in the market, especially comparative to the other all-time highs that we've had. When we hit $70,000 before a couple of years ago, our network was 3 times less robust than it currently is right now. Ergo, if the system is doing better, if we have more people than ever, if there's more money flowing through it, if there's no downtime, if there's constantly thousands of new wallets all the time, and we see this massive amount of buying and very little selling, he said Bitcoin network fundamentals at this point should support a market cap 3 times its current size compared to the last cycle, potentially sustaining. That's the key word. He said potentially sustaining a price of $265,000 per coin. When you talk about the market dips that we have, and it really depends on how much you're into the market, how much you're looking at the actual news. People always talk about a price bottom. The idea is at some point, Bitcoin becomes too cheap. It becomes way too attractive for people to even think of selling it or not buying it at a certain price. It's kind of like, if Bitcoin's at $70,000, do you plan on buying? Most people would say yes. If Bitcoin goes down to 60,000, are you going to buy? Well, yeah, it was at 70. 60 is an attractive number. If Bitcoin goes down to $35,000 when it was just at 70 and the network fundamentals have not changed and the only people who've been selling are retail investors, it's probably a good time to buy. Realistically, even if you don't like Bitcoin and don't have any in your portfolio, people who don't have Bitcoin, I don't understand life. If you don't have any Bitcoin in your portfolio, if Bitcoin falls down to $5,000, you may not like Bitcoin, but odds are you're going to go, I'm going to put 500 in there. That's kind of the generalized idea. He's saying the sustainable price, the price bottom for Bitcoin where we are right now, should be $265,000 per coin, which then leads me to the idea of the price predictions that we've also been getting over the last like 3, 4, 5 months or so within this market. They range anywhere from, during the 2025 market, of a price of $250,000 to the craziest we've heard was a $600,000 Bitcoin. I wonder then, or rather logically, if we did end up getting to a $600,000 Bitcoin, if the market did move down, which is also a gigantic question mark, if the market did move down, would then 265 be the actual level that we ended up holding at? Because the problem with that is very few people who have, how do I say this? The only people who seem to be selling are the brand new people in the market. And this is kind of how it happens every single market, bull run, bull market, bull phase. We get new people in the market who were never in the market. That's why the word new is there. The problem is that they don't understand market fluctuations. And when they see the price go down by 4%, they end up selling. It scares them. They relinquish their coins. But over the course of time, more and more people keep getting into the cryptocurrency market. They buy up fragments and fragments of fragments. But we've seen cycle and cycle again when if we get to a $100,000 Bitcoin, realistically, we're going to dip in price. There's always a sell the news kind of thing. And we would probably dip back down to $89,000 per coin. Can we all agree with that? Why am I looking around the room? There's no one else here, but you understand exactly what I'm talking about. The issue is that the new people who got into the market would be flushed out immediately because they would be terrified and they would go, I have to sell. I made $3,000 worth of profit. They would leave the market and then those coins would be left there, but they would quickly be bought up by the dozens of ETFs that we have out there. They'd be bought up by you and your friends and other family members who have reoccurring orders, and those coins would be gone relatively quick. So all the people who always would benefit the most from the market usually typically end up selling. Any selling that we've seen even now has been, the term is once again short-lived. I hate repeating that term over and over and over, but that's kind of basically exactly what's going on. So in a world where the force and money that we would need to get to $600,000 per coin would be quite tremendous. The extra new people and extra new wealth that we would get in the market and all these rich people who are in the market at the exact same time would also be quite substantial. It is nearly impossible to think or believe that these people would get into the market, the rich people or people who understand the market, and then they would be inclined to sell off the entirety of their position and or leave the market, and that those coins would not be accumulated because the price is then better to buy than it was before. It also gets us into the entire conversation of what do you call it? All the Kathy Wood and Novogratz and Samson Mao and what's this other guy's name predictions as well. Also Jack Dorsey. For those of you who haven't been seeing those predictions, it leads us to the 2028-2029 halving period. And they believe that because of the lack of dips that we would have after 2025, would basically be sustaining between a $600,000 to $800,000 Bitcoin by the time we get to 2028. This then leads us into a $900,000 Bitcoin. But that's also because these people are Bitcoin maximal, like elevated Bitcoin, like they have ascended Bitcoin maximalists who think that we are on the cusp, similar to Jack Dorsey, that Bitcoin is basically going to take over the world. It sounds like a joke or something from like a Netflix movie. No, these people think within the next 4 years that a lot of the world's payments will begin to flow exclusively through Bitcoin, through the Lightning Network. Anyone who's holding Bitcoin, remember I told you before, it's kind of like a sweet spot of a number as to when people are going to be using their Bitcoin. So we get a lot of companies right now who are talking about adding Bitcoin as a payment option, and you can do this, and you can buy, blah, blah, you can buy all these things. And I'm like, yeah, but no one's really inclined to sell off any of their Bitcoin or use their Bitcoin to buy some shoes. That changes quite dramatically when Bitcoin gets to 750,000. People will go, well, I don't mind spending some Satoshis to be able to, buy some new or go on a vacation or something like that. So the idea would be is that people holding Bitcoin essentially would be the new rich in the planet. And then they would be more inclined to start spending their coins. Bitcoin becomes an integral part of the world's economy because of all the money literally flowing through it. And the Lightning Network, Bitcoin's price continues to rise. These people become richer. Of course, they spend more on other assets and things like that. They become richer from the other assets and also from Bitcoin as Bitcoin's price continues to rise. And then it kind of just spirals upward from there because Bitcoin is not attractive when it's at $1,000. Bitcoin becomes a little bit more attractive when it's at $70,000 because you understand that that's something that billions of people will not have access to. Bitcoin becomes an item for the wealthy when it hits $100,000. When Bitcoin passes the price of a home at $250,000, $300,000, it's a significant item of wealth. I have something that's the equivalent price of a home. When Bitcoin goes to $1 million, how many people do you know have something that is worth $1 million? And that's the problem, is that Bitcoin then becomes attractive for the billions of other people who realize that they could have gotten it before, and now they want it because it's worth $1 million. It's the same exact thing with cars. It's the same, all these different things. If all these cars are worth $8,000, nobody would want them. But if you say, hey, I got a Maserati Supreme X4321, it's only worth $600,000. People go, why is that car worth so much? I need to have one as well. And then it becomes aspirational. Yeah. This is being echoed all over the place, and it has been for a while. And I wonder when the toothpick is gonna snap. I can't picture I can't articulate what's flowing through my head right now. But I wonder when we'll get to these numbers. And once again, the 100K is still meant to be 2 months away. That was the earliest prediction that we got. For those of you who missed it, there was someone who made a chart and it was showing the 3-month, 6-month, and 9-month movements for Bitcoin after the halving actually took place. And the numbers for the 3-month movement in price after Bitcoin's halving was Bitcoin was either up between 30 or 80%. So the 30% leads us essentially to a $100,000 Bitcoin from the time we got those numbers. And the 80% would put us around $140,000, $150,000 Bitcoin. And this is where we historically have actually moved in price. So it's just now a bit of a waiting game. We're still, sadly, plugged into the world market. We are still reliant on news of what's happening with interest rates and with inflation and stuff like that. But when we do have interest rates falling, our market's also going to move up as well. And it's kind of like a weird perfect storm kind of thing that's going on between the halving and the interest rates. And also, for those of you who've been missing the news, people who are losing faith in their local currencies. It's impossible to hear that your currency has lost 99% of its value compared to Bitcoin, and you go, I'm okay with that. That's what's, it's taking place everywhere, like all over the place. Like we constantly get news on the other channel, The Modern Investor, about it, for those of you who don't know. Yeah, just a bit of a different video. I don't know, just something, something flowing through my mind, because there's a lot taking place in the world at the exact same time. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.